Alaikum. As I said when I finished the first part of this lecture on health, it is so interesting really that let's try to go into the details of it. So, according to Ayurveda, eating only is basically to keep a balance between body and mind, so you have to take good care of your diet. Indulgence in exercise and excursion Indulgence in exercise and exertion in harmonious correspondence with the physical system are the foremost of the indulgences. Eating at regular hours is the foremost of all acts that lead to health. All our mothers were saying good things to us. Eat at a good time. Suppression of the urging of nature is the foremost all acts that led to disease. Wine is the foremost of all things that led to cheerfulness. Abuse of wine is the foremost of all causes that lead to loss of intelligence and memory. Okay, so they are talking about both the abuse and the use. Eating only once in a day is the foremost of all causes that lead to the happiness and good digestion. So, nourishment of the system is the foremost of all things that induce sleep, and you know a good sleep is needed to work in a better condition of mind and body. Milk is ambrosia, says Charaka, and is ideal for recovering from exhaustion. Cow's milk in particular calms all the three humors and has a tranquilizing effect on man. Beef is termed as mamsakara, promoter of flesh in Ayurveda, and is specially recommended for emaciated persons, but it is not favored for regular consumption as it is heavy and not easily digestible. So in ancient India, McDonald and likes would not have any business. Wine receives high praise from Charaka, but wine, like everything else, should be taken in moderation. If a person takes it in the right manner, in the right dose, at the right time, and along with wholesome food, in keeping with his vitality and with a cheerful mind, to him, wine is ambrosia. So far you see that food, the time, and the amount of food, and that is what today's dietitians are talking about. Next to a controlled diet, Ayurveda stresses the importance of exercise. In preserving health, exercise is particularly important for those who eat heavy food. Substances that are heavy do not nature stimulate fire within the body, warns Charaka. Unless fire is increased within the body by physical exercise, overeating these substances is very harmful. So, maintaining good hygiene too is essential for health. These days are of good hygiene days. You have to wash your hands every now and then. One should not eat without bathing nor while wearing dirty clothes. Hand, feet, face and mouth should be washed before eating, and one should not eat from dirty dishes or at an unsuitable place and time or in a crowded place. You see how much importance is given to the diet and food, and because those are the basic staple things that keep us alive. Bathing by itself has great health benefits. It purifies the body and it enhances the age, relieves fatigue, removes sweat and filth, promotes strength and enhance vitality. After a bath, one should wear fresh clothes, avoid high winds, scorching sun and dew. All kind of a thing. If you live such a wonderfully balanced and a careful life, sure one has to be nothing but healthy in mind and body both. Charaka also deals with the social aspects of hygiene and advises that one should take care not to pick one's nose or break wind loudly in the company. Excuse me. Excuse me. Ayurveda pays considerable attention to how mental states affect health. As the Sanskrit saying goes, as thought to the mind, as the mind, so the body becomes, says Mahabharata. Sensibly, physicians first relieve a man's mental anguish by pleasing talk and delightful presence, for mental health affects the body as a hot iron ball affects the water in a pitcher. So in diagnosing disease and prescribing treatment, Ayurveda, true to its holistic approach, takes into consideration not only the physical and mental state of the patient, but also the totality of the environment in which he lives. Equally thorough is the physical examination of the patient by the physician. One wanting to know the nature of a disease by perception should examine everything perceptible in the body of the patient and should use for the purpose all his sense organs excepting the gustatory organs. A Charaka, in certain cases, especially in diabetes, for instance, he says the physician should even taste the secretions or discharge of the patient. God! They are still doing that to the cows. Ayurveda recognizes that the physical and mental state of the physician himself has a bearing on his success in treating patients. That is true. If a doctor is in good mood, he will treat you well. Therapeutic success, Charaka holds, depends on the rational application of medicine, and rational application depends on dose and time. The basic approach of Ayurveda, as of allopathic medicine, is to prescribe cures that produce effects that are opposite to that of the disease, what we call reactions. Another subject examined in very detail in Ayurveda text is embryology, and the most of it views on its fairly accurate, though mixed up with several fanciful notions, such as the position of the fetus in the womb indicates its sex. But this all has been proved wrong now. And the text of this health also gives precise directions about the type of room and bed that is ideal for confinement, specifying even the wood of which the bed should be made. So the kind of details that they give you, we still have in our traditions. And as Charaka says, that in medicine nothing is good or bad in itself, the effect of everything depends on its application. Rightly used, even viral poison would become excellent medicine. Wrongly used, even excellent medicine would become virulent poison. Ayurveda entirely ignores orthodox food taboos in its prescriptions and has no reservation in recommending the use of various meats, including beef and alcoholic drinks, as medicines. Excuse me. Charaka mentions the use of bile, fat, nails, hooves, hair, the gallstone of cattle, and so on for medicinal purposes. And about this obsession of Modi, Charaka says, the urine of the cow is slightly sweet, it is corrective of disorders, it destroys worms and cures leukoderma. If drunk, it cures itching and is highly beneficial in abdominal edema. There is virtually no discussion of surgical procedure in this Ayurveda by Charaka, or neither by the other Sruta. However, by the classical age, Indian doctors have developed sophisticated system of surgery, including such complex procedures as rhinoplasty, otoplasty, caesarean section, carnitomy, and lithotomy. Sarsuta divides surgical operation into 8 kinds: incising, excising, scraping, puncturing, probing, extracting, draining fluids, and suturing. So as a matter of abundant caution, surgeons were required to perform operations only during astrologically auspicious time and to pray and perform rites before and after operations. Post-operational care included regulation of the patient's diet. Veterinary medicine does not receive much attention in early Indian medical texts, but its practice would have been fairly common in the predominantly agrarian pastoral society of classical India. And this is testified to by the fact that Mauryan Emperor Ashoka had set up several animal hospitals in his empire, and that Mahabharata describes the princes Nakula and Sahadeva as expert veterinarians. There was also a branch of medicine called Virkshana Ayurveda, dealing with the care of trees. So there are mythological stories also about the origin of Ayurveda. One legend attributes to the divine sage Dhanvantari, who emerged white-robed and holding a bowl of nectar, Amrit, out of the cosmic ocean when it was churned by gods and demons. The earliest Indian text that has some material on the treatment of diseases is Atharva Veda of the 2nd millennium BCE, but what it deals with mainly occult medicine of spells and charms. Curiously, as medical practice became scientific and social status of physicians declined instead of rising, the Vedic physicians, like physicians in all ancient civilizations, was essentially an occultist and therefore enjoyed a status close to that of a priest. The first expression of the social disapproval of physician appeared as early as the later Vedic period with Yajurveda, declaring that the physicians are impure, unfit for sacrifice. Manu also cautioned that physicians must be avoided at sacrifices offered to the gods and to the manes. The bias against medicine was actually a bias against empirical studies, as we can understand, against science itself, and we, even in 21st century, have our biases against science. However, despite the Brahmanical prejudice against the medical profession, medical science in India flourished in the closing centuries of BCE because it was strongly favored by Buddhism, which was then the religion of the dominant classes of India. Buddhist monks are credited with making several major contributions to medical knowledge, as their peripatetic lifestyle enabled them to gather a good amount of medical knowledge from different regions and to widely disseminate it. The lively contacts that India maintained with the Persian and Greco-Roman civilization in the early classical period also stimulated the growth of medical knowledge in India. There are several similarities between the Greek and the Indian medical systems in the concept of the humors, the effect of season on health, the method of treating diseases with remedies of opposite qualities, and so on. Greek influence on Ayurveda is also indicated by the use of several Greek terms in Indian medical texts. Interesting. It is significant that the most renowned center of medical studies in early classical India was the northwestern city of Taxila, where Persian and Greco-Roman influences were strong. Foreign influences were in fact so strong that Orthodox Brahmins condemned it as impure region. Meanwhile, even as Ayurveda became moribund in India, its influence spread to the Middle East and Europe. The Sassanid rulers of Persia were keen patrons of Indian medicine, astronomy, and metaphysics. An Indian physician is said to have resided in Susa, teaching medicine. The Abbasid caliphs were also patrons of Ayurveda, particularly Harun al-Rashid of the 8th century. He sent a number of Arabs to India to study medicine and pharmacology, and induced several Indian physicians to migrate to Baghdad to serve in the hospitals there and to translate Sanskrit medical text into Arabic. There is a good amount of information on medical studies and practices in Indian text. The earliest important center of medical education in India was Taxila, a cosmopolitan city of heady intellectual environment. The great Buddhist University of Nalanda was another major center of medical studies. There was no fixed duration of medical studies in India, and there was no examination to pass for graduation and no degree to earn. How easy, how convenient. And India, unlike China, did not have any systematic procedure for regulating the medical profession, but physicians were required to obtain government permission to practice. The control of the medical profession being generally lax in India, quacks abundant everywhere, exploring and exploiting the ignorance and helplessness of the people. Quacks are common objects of ridicule in classical Indian literature. Quacks are found even today also. And mocks another Sanskrit poet, and he wrote mockingly, "Best of physicians, homage be thine, for thy slaying of mankind on the death lays all his burden and lives in happy ease."